There's a tiny gland buried deep in the center of your brain. It's about the size of a pea, and for thousands of years, people thought it was the seat of the human soul. The ancient Egyptians carved it into their monuments. Descartes called it the principal seat of the soul. Even Nikola Tesla wrote about it in his private journals. But somewhere along the way, doctors stopped talking about it. Today, most people don't even know it's there. It's called the pineal gland, and what's happened to it in the modern world is one of the strangest medical stories nobody's telling. Your pineal gland sits almost exactly at the center of your brain. It's the only part of your brain that isn't a paired structure. In other words, there's just one of it, sitting right there, alone, in the middle of everything. Its main job? It makes melatonin. That's the chemical that tells your body when it's time to sleep. But that's not all it does. The pineal gland also responds to light, not through your eyes, but through the skull itself. Researchers have found photoreceptor-like cells in the pineal tissue of many animals. Some scientists believe it may have once functioned as a kind of third eye in early human ancestors. Indigenous cultures around the world figured this out long before modern medicine. The Ajna chakra in Hindu tradition sits exactly where the pineal gland is. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs show the Eye of Horus, and when you map it onto a cross-section of the human brain, it lines up with the pineal, the thalamus, and the corpus callosum almost perfectly. That's not a coincidence. Then in 1990, Dr. Rick Strassman at the University of New Mexico got a rare government approval to study a compound called DMT is one of the most powerful psychoactive substances known to science. And here's the thing, the human body makes it. Dr. Strassman believed that the pineal gland was the production site. His work, documented in his book DMT, the Spirit Molecule, described research subjects having profound, near-death-like experiences during his trials. The studies were controversial, the government funding dried up, but the science didn't disappear. Researchers at Michigan published a paper in 2019 confirming endogenous DMT in the brain tissue of rats. They found it concentrated in areas associated with the visual cortex. And here's what doesn't make the news. The pineal gland calcifies over time. A process called calcification, where calcium, phosphate, and fluoride compounds build up inside the gland, begins as early as childhood in some people. By adulthood, the majority of Americans show visible calcification on brain scans. A 2001 study published in the journal Anti-Cancer Research found a correlation between pineal calcification and lower melatonin levels in adults. Another study from the Journal of Pineal Research found that people with higher degrees of calcification showed measurable disruptions in circadian rhythm. The research is there, it just isn't the headline. So why don't we hear more about this? The honest answer is we don't know for sure, but we do know a few things. First, the pineal gland is difficult to study. It sits deep in the brain and it's tiny. Research is expensive and results are hard to standardize. Second, the cultural and spiritual associations made some scientists uncomfortable. Anything that sounds like it connects to spirituality tends to get dismissed in mainstream academic circles, even when the biology is solid. Third, and this one matters, fluoride. In the 1990s, a British scientist named Jennifer Luke completed a PhD thesis that became one of the most cited papers in pineal research. She found that fluoride, the same compound added to most municipal drinking water in the United States, accumulates in the pineal gland at higher concentrations than in any other soft tissue in the body. Her work was published, it was peer-reviewed, and then, not much happened with it. The mainstream response was that the levels weren't high enough to cause harm. But questions lingered, and they're still being asked today. Here's where things get interesting. Sleep disorders are now one of the most common health complaints in America. The CDC says more than a third of adults aren't getting enough sleep. Brain fog, the feeling that you can't think clearly, has become its own cultural shorthand. People are spending billions on supplements, meditation apps, and blue light glasses trying to feel like themselves again. And a growing number of researchers are looking back at the pineal gland and asking, what if we got this wrong? There's a small but serious body of work looking at the connection between melatonin production and cognitive health, between circadian disruption and everything from metabolic issues to mental clarity. The gland that got forgotten is showing up in the research again. Here's what I keep coming back to. We've mapped the human genome. We've sent machines to Mars. We can edit DNA with a protein that costs less than a coffee maker. But there's a gland in the center of every human brain that researchers have been writing about for 70 years, and we still don't fully understand what it does. Why is that? Is it because the answers don't serve a profitable product? Is it because the spiritual associations made serious scientists look the other way? Or is it something simpler? Just the long, slow lag of science catching up to what ancient cultures somehow already knew. I don't have a clean answer, but I think the question's worth asking. Now, if this got you curious about your own pineal health, there's a free video going around right now that goes deeper into some of the natural compounds that researchers have been looking at. It's worth watching. You can check it out at the link below. It's free, it won't cost you anything to watch, and I'll put the link in the description. The pineal gland was called the seat of the soul for thousands of years. Maybe the ancients were onto something, or maybe they were wrong and it's just a melatonin pump. Either way, isn't it strange that nobody's in a hurry to find out? Go watch the free video. The link's in the description.